So let's come to a point and have a look at the telerik RadDataPager. When we look at the documentation, we see that it provides us with navigation interfaces and so on. And in the key features, we see that it works with any enumerable. It will internally generate an paged collection view and expose it through paged source. Sounds interesting, or at least high sophisticated. Unfortunately, there is no statement about server-side paging. On the other hand, telerik says deliver more than expected, so we'll simply give it a try and see what happens. First, let's generate some space for the data pager. I simply do this by adding a second row to our grid. The first row will fill all remaining space, while the second row is 30 units high. So star for the first row and a height of 30 for the second row. From the toolbox, we will now drag a RadDataPager to our grid. As we did for the grid, we will remove the margins and change the alignment values to stretch. And we will also give this control a better name. Just RDP data and stretch for vertical alignment. And as you can see, our second grid row has now this data pager included. Let's switch to code view and change the bindings. So instead of binding the data to the RAID grid, we use the RadDataPager, and instead of item source, we use source. The source itself stays the same, it's our log entries collection. And last not least, we have to bind the data for our grid view. Now we will bind it to the RadDataPager. Again, we have our item source, and the binding is to this paging. So it's a paged source, and the element name is what we named our RadDataPager. It means RDP data. Now, since we have our data pager in place, let's hit F5 and debug the application to see what happens now. Application starts. Data is here, and in the background we see the same SQL statements we had before, so it seems as if nothing changed by using this data pager. Again, the count, the first row, and all the records. The same when we filter, all records are selected, opening the filter box, selecting, and again all statements are the same as we had it before. So we have a pager in place now, but it does not provide any enhanced functionality. It seems as we have to customize our RadDataPager. Let's do this. First, let's change the look a bit and have buttons for the pages. We can do this by switching to the properties of our RadDataPager. Here we are, and we have a first, last, previous, next. Let's choose all, so we get all the paging controls. And you see now there is a button with a number. We can also set the number of these buttons by setting the numeric button count. Let's use 20 in this case. And now comes the magic. We have to tell the RadDataPager how many records a page will have. So let's add a page size. In this case we say 18. This little statement is all the magic behind paging. Let's run it again. Data is here and the SQL statements changed. Notice we have now a select top 18, as you see. And when we open the filter, well, let's first sort, and you see we have select top 18 again. So now we only get 18 records from our server to the client. Let's try this by filtering, set some values, and again we see we have this select top 18, but at the moment we are at the first page, so let's have a look what happened when we change to a different page, because select top 18 will always select the first 18 top records. What's about another page? Let's switch the page. Still on page 1. Select top 18 from. Now go to page 2 or 3, and now we see we have a subselect where row number is used to determine which records should be retrieved from the server. Again, we will select only 18 records. This comes from this parameter P4, and you see we did almost nothing, just added this little data pager and gave it a page size, and what we get is now SQL statements which select only a certain number of records, not the whole 13,000 things or whatever exists on the server. We always get a query which retrieves those needed, in this case 18 records. By the way, to get those 18 records, it is done by filtering the row number between P3, which is the number of the first record on the page, and P3 plus P4, which is the number of records to retrieve. So a very simple mechanism, but it works. So the conclusion is, to add data paging, we simply add a RadDataPager to our form, give the thing a page size which starts paging, bind our grid no longer to the data directly, instead we bind it to a paged source where we select the element name, which is the same as the name we gave for the RadDataPager. Last not least, we bind our data to the DataPager source instead of the grid itself. That's all. So we are at the end of this tutorial. You have seen how easy it is to get server-side data paging just by adding a RadDataPager to your application and set the page size. For more information visit manyit.pp-b.net, and for information about the telerik products visit www.telerik.com. Goodbye.